Hello, this is Walt Richmond. I'd like to thank you for inviting me to speak at your conference. It's rare that an academic book gets any kind of attention at all other than just a few scholars here and there, and so I'm very happy that my book has become useful to people on the other side of the world. I wanted to start by just mentioning how I came to write this project. About 1996, a group of scholars in America decided to investigate the histories of the non-Russian peoples of the Soviet Union. It had been very difficult to do so prior to 1992. And so I was interested in Islam and had been for a long time, and so I decided to work on the Muslim peoples. I surveyed all the different areas of the former Soviet Union and was studying the Caucasus as well. And when about 10 years ago I was asked to write a piece for the Journal of Genocide Research on the Karachay deportations in the middle of the World War II. And in the course of writing that article, I compiled enough material to write actually two articles, and the second was about the return of the Karachays and the recreation of Karachay-Cherkessia, and the problems the various ethnic groups had in accommodating the return of the Karachays, and the problems that arose as a result of the creation of the new multi-ethnic republic. And that article was published in the Journal of Muslim Minority Affairs. And so over the next couple of years, I continued to research on this subject. And by 2005, I realized I had enough material to start on a book. And the original project was going to be just the 20th century, and then I quickly realized I didn't quite have enough material to write a whole book on that subject. And so I went back into the 19th century. At that point, I realized that in order to fully examine the Russo-Circassian War, it had to go back into the 18th century, and by this time I just said, well, let's just write a general history of the whole region. And that's what the idea was behind the final version of the book, to create a kind of handbook, or maybe a textbook, you might call it, of the Northwest Caucasus to serve as kind of a basis for future scholars to work with, since there was nothing like it in English at the time. So, when I submitted the manuscript, and it was accepted by Routledge, they had a limit of 100,000 words, and my manuscript was 150,000 words. And so the book you have is actually only 2/3 of the book I wrote. The majority of the material I had to throw out was in the first couple chapters, because the first chapter, although it was really interesting material, was not really relevant to what I was trying to say. And I did keep the general gist of the first chapter, which is that all the archaeological, linguistic, and anthropological evidence indicates the Adiga-Abkhaz people have been there on the northeast shore of the Black Sea for at least 4,000 years. But there was a lot of interesting data I had to leave out. In the second chapter as well, I got a lot of material from Han Giray's 1830 book, Notes on Circassia, and it was very interesting material about the precise locations of each tribe, their dialects, their specific occupations. But I left a lot of that out for the sake of expounding on the topics that were of most interest, and that is the Russo-Circassian War and its aftermath, and then the 20th century. The rest of the book, chapters 3 through 8, really cover that period from about 1760 to the present, and I wrote it as neutrally as possible for two reasons. One, I didn't really feel I had enough expertise to make a lot of informed judgments. And second, I did want it to have the feel of a textbook and a handbook. And so I left out some of the judgments that at the time I felt viscerally were accurate, but I didn't have enough data, and I also felt that it would take away from the textbook, handbook feel that I wanted the book to have. And so as you read through the chapters about the history of the late 18th century to the present, you will get that feel that I try to give each perspective of the various peoples there. The Circassian perspective, Karachay, Balkar, the Cossack perspective, the Nogai perspective, and that was so that all the information would be there factually, and in the future other scholars could take those facts and then make more informed judgments about what they meant. And in the final section, this really is kind of the weakness of the book, where I don't really make any kind of predictions for the future. And I really, at that point, felt that I couldn't really make any informed predictions, and so I decided to just summarize. And I feel in hindsight that part of the book is rather weak, but the rest of it has all the material there, and factual material particularly, that creates the picture of what happened. And it's up to the reader to decide what point of view is the most accurate, the most justifiable. But that's really the way I wanted the book to read. Now my current project, which I'm actually coincidentally submitting a manuscript to Rutgers Press in the next couple days, is entitled The Circassian Genocide, a study in historical momentum, and it really focuses on the material of Chapter 4. It's really an expansion of Chapter 4 of the book you have. And this book will have quite a bit more of judgmental position than the prior book. And so hopefully that one will be also of use to you. Thanks again. I am very happy that my book has become useful to so many people, and I appreciate your attention. Thanks.